Hello everybody and welcome back. I've been sitting on this couch for like an hour, and only one person has come to sit with me, and they only stayed for like 3 seconds, and I am sad. Okay, now on to the actual topic of this video. Just kidding, I have one more announcement first. I saw on the forums today that they are going to wipe all the data from the preview server on May 2nd. And that made me really sad because I have so much stuff on there and so much time spent there to work on builds and stuff, and now I'm gonna have to start back from what I have on the live server. Now the actual purpose of this video is to go over the results of the survey that I conducted a few weeks ago. And now if you're new to the channel, you probably didn't even know about it, and it kind of shows because the survey didn't do very well. I'm pretty disappointed with how it turned out. It only got 395 responses, and my goal was to reach 1,000, so I didn't even get halfway there. But I still got some interesting information out of it, and I did send it to the developers today. I sent a message to them all on the forums well, not all of them, because I don't know all of their forum names, but I sent it to 6 of them, so it has to go to somebody that can read it, I would hope. Anyway, that being said, I want to go over a few of the questions and the responses that I found interesting. I'm not going to go over all of them because that would take like 9 years, and a lot of the stuff is outdated now anyway, but there's some general stuff, like the event stuff and ideas, and just some general things that I wanted to touch on. So that's what the purpose of this video is. So one of the first questions, the platform that people play on, kind of went how I expected. About 64% of people play on PC, of the people who answered anyway, and then the consoles are a obvious minority. Which is to be expected because PC is obviously better. I also asked how often people play Neverwinter, and the vast majority of people play every single day. And I found that to be surprising as well, because I thought there would be more people who would choose like every couple days or a few times a week because of the player base that Neverwinter has. At least from the analytics that I get from YouTube, the majority of people who watch my content are between the ages of 20 and 50. And so the people in that age range generally have full-time jobs or schooling or something, or families or something like that that take up a lot of their time, and so I expected that they wouldn't be able to play as often, but according to this, the majority of people play every single day. However, there's an interestingly large-ish section of people who say they do not play anymore, and I feel like that is because of Mod 16 for the most part. Now, favorite classes. Surprisingly, it was relatively even for the most part, with Barbarian taking up the highest spot, and then Devoted Cleric and Warlocks coming in second. But what was interesting to me is that Guardian Fighter has a very obvious not favoritism. I don't know what that sentence was, but what I meant was that the least amount of people think that Fighter is their favorite class. Anyway, I also asked how people found out about Neverwinter, and I realized afterwards that it was kind of dumb of me not to include an option for friends or people that you know, because it ended up with a graph that looks like this, and that's not really very helpful. But a surprisingly large number of people said they found out about Neverwinter from YouTube. I didn't know that many people looked for new games on YouTube. That is actually interesting to me. I also didn't include console versions of the Steam stores, like the Xbox store and the PlayStation store, because I didn't think about that because I don't play console. I've already learned 2 new things from this survey, and we're only on step 3 or question 4. I don't know. We're on something. Okay. When people started playing Neverwinter, a very large amount of responses were from people who started playing back in the very early days, 2013, 2014. And that was also surprising to me because you would think that the majority of those people would have quit or moved on or just don't play anymore, you know. And the smallest number of people started playing in 2019, which I guess makes sense because it's only April of 2019, so there's still like 8 more months until the end of the year, so that number will probably grow, especially with Undermountain coming out and Mod 17 as well later in the year. Lastly, for the sort of general questions, the classes that people play the most, this was not surprising to me at all, the winners being Cleric and Paladin. I expected that because that's what people need the most in parties, and so people make alternate characters of those classes and then end up playing those more than their mains because that's what people need. So it's interesting to see how this changes through Mod 16. I lied, that wasn't the end of the general questions. I asked people if they could add one thing to Neverwinter, what would it be? And the majority of the responses were more dungeons, flying mounts, and better PvP. So, I think that's what people want in the game. Flying mounts is one thing that I don't think will ever happen. I don't think we're going to get anything better than the flying carpet that we have, or something like that, because, like, you could just use it to get out of the map all the time. It's not an open world environment. Like, if Neverwinter was a true open world game, flying mounts would be a lot more sensible, I guess. But considering the maps are enclosed for the most part, I don't think that it is something that will ever be added. But what do I know? Maybe they'll add a space module and we can all use our spaceships in space. I don't know where else you would use them, but you get the point. Okay, this isn't really a general question, but it sort of fits in. I asked how well you thought Cryptic interacts with the community, and the results are not very good. It's obvious, very obviously skewed to the left, and left is bad. I mean, what? I can't really say anything about that, because it's true. I wish it were different, and I say that a lot, or at least I have said that a lot. But I really do think that it is Perfect World and Wizards of the Coast that are preventing them from saying as much as they want to. But, I mean, who knows? Next up, we're going to talk about events a little bit. Really only one or two things I think that I wanted to touch on, and that was the Mysterious Egg, Mysterious Drake Summoning Scroll, and Mystical Charger. Those events are just so... they're not even events. All it is it adds a new item to the Wondrous Bazaar that's relatively expensive, and then you have a chance to get this mount, I'm pretty sure is how it works. Or the companions, or whatever. I think they're a mix of both. But, hey, a person. Sit on this chair with me! I've been lonely all day. Sit. Please? Okay. But anyway, I wanted to petition these be taken off the regular calendar because they're not even a real event and people are just so disappointed by them. I think they should just only appear as festival rewards because that's when most of the people get these things anyways, because the majority of people don't even participate in these so-called events. Oh, by the way, I also asked what people would remove from Neverwinter, if they could remove any one thing, and a lot of people just said Mod 16, and you guys are very funny. Now on to the more Mod 16-ish stuff, first thing being how people felt about the large-scale class balance. And the majority of people felt that change was necessary, but they don't like the changes that were done. And this could be just personal preference, or they had better ideas, or they just feel weaker, or whatever now, and that leads them to not like it, confusion, and so on. So if I ask this question now, I think that, or even a month from now, I think the results would be different on both accounts, because now the entire Neverwinter player base has access to this, at least the PC version. And then in a month, a lot more people would be used to it, and I think more people would be more okay with the changes if they're used to them. Now on to the topic of boons. I think that one's pretty obvious. Vast majority of people either don't like the boons or aren't sure how they feel about the boons. Now keep in mind that this question was asked before the boons were updated to have the 5 ranks and damage and damage resistance in one boon and so on. But I think I still agree with that. I personally don't like the changes to boons, but it's not a game breaker for me. It's not a deal breaker. That's what I meant to say. It's not a deal breaker for me. I'll get over it. And adapt. Oh god, guys, I fried 600 pieces of chicken today, and I can't even brain anymore. Okay, now on to one cleric related question, and that is chains of blazing lights. Do people think that it should deal area damage like it used to? And 92% of people say yes. I mean, cleric's AoE is relatively bad at the moment, so having that AoE option, even if it was minimal, and then using that in conjunction with, I think they have a class feature that gives them bonus damage when they apply a negative effect to an enemy. I think. Maybe that's another class I'm thinking of. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think people want it. I lied, there was 2 cleric-based questions I wanted to talk about. The second one being Divine Glow. Does Divine Glow feel worth using to you? And, a lot of people said no. I mean, there's a feat now to make it better if you are playing, what is it? Devout, I think, has that feat. Alright, so these questions are really out of order. I did a really bad job at ordering these things, but, we're gonna talk about feats for a second. And I asked people if they liked the removal of the feat trees in favor of the quote-unquote more impactful feats that are less of. Oh god. This is like the worst English I've ever spoken in my life. What I meant to say is... I actually don't know what I meant to say, but the majority of people don't like the feat changes. Almost 50% of people said it just wasn't necessary, and then 32% of people said they liked the removal of the trees, but the new options aren't any good either. So that's like 79% of people in general who say they don't like the feats. I mean, obviously this is only 389 people, and that's nowhere close to the entire player base, and so this can't be regarded as accurate information. Also, another off-topic question. I asked if the people who took this survey have ever played the Dungeons & Dragons tabletop game, and the responses were pretty even. Roughly 50% said yes, 50% no, which, pretty much what I expected. Now let's talk about ideas. Mainly, I want to touch on the ideas that I presented, although there were some pretty good ideas that you guys presented as well. But I want to talk about community ambassadors a little bit. This is an idea. Hey, dude, that NPC just ran right through me and interrupted my dance. That is unacceptable. And here comes 2 more. 3 more. What is this, like, the busy street or something? So anyway, my idea about community ambassadors. It's an idea that I've had for a while. I got it from another game that I play that has something like this. It's not called community ambassadors, but what they do is they talk to the developers once every 2 weeks about the state of the game, bring up community concerns, talk about future plans, and ask for feedback on those. It's basically like having more community managers whose only job is to look after the community and bring up what they want so that they can develop the game better. Basically what it is. Now, is this something that I think Cryptic would actually implement? No, because I feel like there's too many legal obligations that they wouldn't be able to fulfill if they had this. And, like, you know, there's always the potential of leaked stuff. Even if these people are very trusted individuals, it's still possible that that sort of thing could happen. And then, you know, it's just not something I see them doing, especially given the current rate of communication that they have with the community. Dude, this dude just walked out to me and just stood there. Like, what do you want? Are you here to give me free food? I mean, if you are, I'll gladly take it. Okay, bye. Anyway, 87% of the people who responded said they liked that idea. Just kidding, that says 89. I can read. So basically 90%. That's a lot of people. In the additional comments, a lot of people were concerned about that they would have to pick the right people, and then people would think that they would taint, like the Cryptic would taint our views on stuff, or that we would use that opportunity. I use we as like community ambassador general, not including myself, because I don't know if I would even be interested in doing something like that. But people thought that we would try to push our ideas onto the devs instead of what the community wants and stuff like that. And these are all valid concerns. But I was just presenting the idea to people to see if it was something that people were even remotely interested in. That being said, I asked if people thought if the ambassadors, if it ever did become a thing, if they should be chosen by Cryptic or voted on by the community, and the vast majority said they should be voted on. Like, I don't know how that would work. Well, I do know how it could work, but yeah, because of how the other game did it this way as well. And also, the other game in their patch notes, if something was worked on or suggested by a member of their little council thing, it's noted in the patch notes with an icon like saying, hey, these people that you guys voted on helped to make this change or suggested this to us and we did it, and so on like that. Also, the other game puts high important issues at the bottom, like, hey, this is what we have in mind, this is important issues that we want to fix but have not fixed yet. And I think that's something that would really help too. This is just turning into a talk show video. I should host a talk show and use this as my icon. Okay, next on our list of ideas was the item search thing that I suggested, and this was not suggested by me. I don't remember who suggested it, but I took it from somewhere and added it here because I thought it was a good idea, and that is an item search. It's kind of like an updated collection, sort of, but you look up any item, not just any valuable items or gear or anything like that, any item, and everywhere you can get it is listed. So that's like for marks of potency, you know, wards, refinement items, trinkets, vanity pets, and stuff like that. Obviously, this wouldn't really be useful for things like paradots and black pearls, which drop from literally every single enemy. Having stuff where people actually ask, hey, how do I get this? Where do I get these? In there would actually be pretty helpful. And this ties into something I've been saying all along, that more information should be presented in game so that people don't have to go outside of the game to other third-party sources to find the information that they're looking for. Or so that people don't have to spend multiple hours or days testing a certain piece of gear or concept or math formula or whatever to see if it's even working properly or to find out how it even works to begin with. Okay, so next up is totally not on topic at all, but I asked in mod 15 and mod 16 how balanced people thought the classes were in relation to each other, with some being stronger or weaker than others, and in mod 15 the graph was kind of centered around the middle, ranging between 3 and 8, which is not exactly centered around the middle, that's almost every single option. But that meant that a lot of people didn't really think they were a ton of outliers. I mean, a lot of people said 1 as well. And in mod 16, I think a lot of people just chose 5 because I didn't know, and the default answer to something that you're not sure about is to pick the neutral or the middle response. And then there were also a lot of people who chose 1, so that means that a lot of people did think there were outliers, and the options 1 through 5 are the most popular. So people thought that the classes were not very balanced. Of course, this was several weeks ago, so opinions could have changed by then. Like, those people who picked 1 were probably rangers or rogues, because they didn't get very many updates at all for a while. Speaking of classes, how did people feel about all these class changes being released at the same time as a level cap increase? And a surprising number of people thought it was fine, and I'm actually in this category. I do think it's fine, but it is kind of overwhelming whenever you first hear about it, and that's why a lot of people think it's not fine. The most popular option is that they should have been done separately, and I think that would have been easier for most players to handle, but it might not have been feasible for them or something, I don't know. Maybe they wanted to use this huge rework as a brand new advertising technique or something. I do not know. I am not an encyclopedia. Anyway, again with classes, do you want a new class in the game? And as I expected, over 50% of people said that they would like a new class after the current ones are balanced. And, I mean, that's what I expected. That's where I fall in also. And only 10% of people said no. And 38% of people were like, yes, I want a new class as soon as possible. I don't feel like adding a new class is a super high priority for this game at the moment, but it would be cool, sure. And once again, classes, strength in mod 15 versus mod 16. In mod 15, it's very obvious that people thought great weapon fighters were the strongest class, and trickster rogues were the weakest class. And control wizards, they're roughly the same. I mean, I don't have the actual percentages up here because the slivers are too small, but, like, they look relatively close. And then in mod 16, the strongest class a lot of people still think is the great weapon fighter, and then you have guardian fighter coming in second, and then a mixture of control wizard and hunter ranger coming in third. The weakest class still happens to be trickster rogue in this graph. So a lot of people still aren't liking the rogue, although to be honest, I really enjoy running dungeons with the rogue, because they give combat advantage, and they can stun everything. And you can even stun some bosses now, and I don't know if that's intended or not, but you can. And, you know, that makes it a lot easier. But what do I know, right? I like how I'm just jamming out here and no one is paying me any attention. Like, I'm one of those street actors with no audience who has that little bucket, like, give me money, next to me, and no one's even anywhere close. I must suck at this. Okay, so weakest classes in mod 15 versus mod 16. As you can guess, based on what I just said, the least people chose Great Weapon Fighter, and the most people chose Trickster Rogue. And, I mean, makes sense. Makes sense, right? And then in mod 16, I think a lot of people were just confused because all the pieces are relatively equal. I think people are just confused about the changes and seeing they deal less damage and just generally feel weaker than before. But, the one that won is still Trickster Rogue. Actually, that's a lie. The one that won is Devoted Cleric. People feel weakest as a cleric. in Mod 16, which is interesting to me because clerics have potential for very, very decent DPS. Now, I did a comparison of how useful people thought the feats and class features are for all 8 classes, and that's a lot of information to put on the screen at once, but I'll try to make it work. Obviously, this stuff is very outdated because it's from many weeks ago, but as far as feats go, Barbarian sort of drew the short straw there. The majority of people don't really think that they were useful. Of course, since they've been changed, I don't know. That's why this information's kind of inaccurate now. But everyone else had pretty much centralized graphs in some way, shape, or form, mostly except for Paladin feats. That also is pretty 5 or below. I think I only have one more thing to talk about, and it's not even related to anything that I said already. It's just sort of at the end of my list of pictures. And is, have you purchased Zen in the past 3 months? And to be honest, I'm kind of surprised that so many people said yes. I was expecting that number to be way lower because of all the people who are always trying to get Zen from the Zen exchange, or maybe they did both, gave up on waiting a month and just bought some. Anyway, that is it. I wanted to touch on the individual ideas and events that people had, but it would have taken me forever to read them all, and I've barely even had time to play the game this week, let alone make videos, let alone read 395 people's responses to this survey. Anyways, I do want to give a thank you to the people who did participate. Although it didn't go nearly as well as I'd hoped, it did give me something, and I know now that if I want to try to do something like this again in the future, I should be more concise with things, more easily accessible with it. Like, a lot of people were upset that you had to log in to take this survey, and that was only for the optional thing at the end, which was to send me a cat picture. Like, that was the only reason that it was on there. It needed you to log in so that I could save. The pictures would be saved in my Google Drive, and the only thing that I could see is your display name, by the way. Like, I can't see any of your emails, names, nothing. So I just talked for what felt like a half an hour. And it was indeed a half an hour, 31 minutes. So let's see how short I can make this video. I don't know how that's gonna work. Anyways, let me know what you think about the survey, or what people said about the survey, or like, I don't know. Just tell me something in the comments. I don't really care what it is. Just comment something about your day. Okay? And thank you all for watching or listening or whatever. I'm guessing you people probably listened because there's obviously not very much going on in the video today. But yeah. See you guys later. I'm going to be working on leveling my characters up this weekend and trying to get a couple of builds/guides out in the next week or two. I don't know how well that's going to work. I'll have my May calendar out soon as well, so look out for that, and okay, bye.